Welcome to A Slice with Dice, where education meets inspiration and leadership meets real life. I'm Corey Alderdice, Executive Director of the Arkansas School for Mathematics, Sciences, and the Arts. With 2 decades in school leadership, I'll share what I've learned from walking the tightrope between policy and practice, especially when it comes to doing right by gifted students and their futures. Ready to dive in? Here's this week's Slice. Well, here we are again. Another August, another start of the school year. Students walking into classrooms that are still echoing from summer, teachers straightening desks and restocking supplies, and administrators with their folios and calendars doing their best to help set the tone for the months ahead. And yet, for all the structure and predictability of the academic calendar, we know the truth. Each school year is its own transition. And there's the obvious kind, the student entering kindergarten or middle school or their senior year. But transitions aren't always tied to a grade level. They show up in different ways: a new principal, a district-wide curriculum change, a beloved teacher or staff member retiring, a new family moving in, an old challenge resurfacing. Change is part of the rhythm. Sometimes it arrives quietly, and sometimes, well, it can feel like an earthquake. Bruce Feiler, in his book Life is in the Transitions, reminds us that our lives aren't meant to move in straight lines. The notion of a predictable path, graduate, get a job, retire, is largely a myth. Instead, life is nonlinear. We navigate disruptions, detours, redefinitions. He calls the big ones lifequakes, and while they can feel disorienting, they often end up becoming the most formative experiences we have. That's not just true for individuals, it's true for institutions too, especially schools. This fall marks my final semester as Executive Director at ASMSA, and I'll remain in the role through the end of the calendar year, but like many of you, I found myself thinking about what it means to lead through transition. Not just to manage it, but to embrace it. Because the work of schools is not just academic, it's deeply human. We're in the business of becoming. Students are growing, teachers are adapting, families are adjusting, and yes, leaders are evolving too. Each year brings a fresh opportunity to start again, not just to repeat what's worked, but to reflect, to reimagine, to respond to what our communities need now. I think one of the most generous things we can do for each other during times of transition is to name the moment, to say clearly, this is a change. Not to dramatize it, but to acknowledge it. When we name what we're going through, we make it a shared experience rather than a silent one. That's true in a family, it's true in a classroom, and it's certainly true in a school community. Transitions aren't always comfortable. They can be messy, but that messiness, it's where the growth happens. Feiler calls it the messy middle, the space between the long goodbye and the new beginning. It's where identities get reshaped and where uncertainty pushes us to pay closer attention, and where resilience begins to take root. As schools across Arkansas and across the country head into a new year, we don't have to pretend that everything's settled. Some things are in motion. Some things are unresolved. But here's the beauty. Schools are made for this. We're in the business of preparing people for change. And the best way to teach it is to live it, to show students that growth is possible not in spite of transition, but because of it. If you're a teacher facing your first year in the classroom or your 30th, you're in transition. If you're a student starting fresh in a new school or returning after a tough year, you're in transition. If you're a principal, a bus driver, a counselor, a parent, or a policymaker trying to navigate a system that always feels like it's shifting, you too are in transition. But that doesn't mean you're off course. It means that you're human, and it means you're doing the real work. So as the year begins, maybe we don't rush to have it all figured out. Maybe we embrace the unfinished nature of this moment. Maybe we remind each other that the best chapters often start with at least a bit of uncertainty. Transitions don't just mark the end of something, they open the door to what's next. And if we walk through that door with intention, with grace, and with curiosity, there's no telling what kind of year we can create together. A Slice with Dice is a production of Aldercube. Thanks for making time to reflect with me. If you're finding value in these episodes, I hope you'll subscribe and help spread the word. Until next week, lead boldly, listen closely, and keep pushing forward. I'll see you then.